Okay, so I'm just gonna make a quick tutorial on the bikes. First thing to note before you take off, over here usually they'll tell you the tire pressure you're expecting for your front and rear tires. Make sure this is what it is. You need to get like some sort of, what I have two things. I have tire pressure monitors in the tires, or on the valves to be exact, if I can show here. There it is, and that feeds the PSI information into this little doohickey here. So I'm at 36, which is exactly what it needs to be. Could be a bit higher, but you don't want to ride with inadequate pressure. If it's bad, you can lose fuel consumption. At its worst, you can lose control. So that's one thing. Second thing, before you take off, especially if you're going long motorway journeys, is make sure the tire's in good shape. There's no scarring or any gouges that could, compromise the integrity of the tire at high speeds. That's something you do not want. Just to go over a few basic things, most importantly, the mirrors. So riding a bike is all about situational awareness, and the mirrors are what gives you that 99% of the time, besides your eyes. So my one's a bit loose, so I always carry around with me an Allen wrench, so I can get this one in place. And yeah, we'll get to that in a bit when I get on the bike. So let's just get them out here. I know it's roughly around this position actually. So here we go. That big bar there is engine protection. Doesn't do anything. It's just in the case the bike falls over, the engine will be protected. So it's also something good to have. You have for fully faired bikes, they have engine sliders. So it's like a little rubber stump that comes out. So if it falls, that will basically slide along the ground instead of the engine casing. So if you do get a new bike, I suggest you get one of them. This bike has two types of stands. The kickstand is pretty much standard on every single motorcycle. This one has a center stand, and how this works is basically like a crowbar. This is a leverage, so when you put pressure on it, when the bike is upright, it's like you're pushing pressure on a crowbar and it's trying to pivot the bike backwards and then prop it up. So we'll get to that later. The thing about the bike, left side is gears, right side is brakes. So right now it's in neutral. Let me turn the engine on. Right now it's got steering lock. So in this bike, steering lock is kind of when you turn the handlebars this way in the off position. This is off position. You push the key in, turn a bit more to the left, and then it stops the bike. You're unable to straighten the handlebars. This is like the minimum of theft protection, so people can just walk away with your bike. On this one, however, if I turn it one click more to the left, you get hazard lights. These lights come on. So if you're parked outside, like in a hard shoulder at night, you don't need to keep the engine running. You can have these lights on just to be safe. Okay, so when I turn the bike on, simply switch it to the on position. Now, this green light indicates it's neutral, and this red light means it's a diagnostic light for the ABS. So this light should go off once you start moving around 5 miles per hour. Sorry, not that one. This one. This is the ABS light. This is like the engine light. They should both go off once you start moving. Gears on the bike. Neutral. If I shift down, first gear. If I go up past neutral, you need to pull the clutch in. Well, the bike needs to be moving, but it's in neutral now. If I shift down, if I push down, not neutral anymore. What neutral is basically the power train from the engine is not disconnected from the wheels. So you do this when you start your engine, obviously, because you don't want the instant your engine to start running that the bike starts moving. So the gears is neutral, and first gear. If you go down, if you go up from first gear, you go to neutral again. But if you go beyond neutral, it's second gear. From second gear, you go up, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear. Some bikes don't have the sixth gear, but this one is a 6-speed, so it has 6 gears. So neutral is between 1 and 2, and one thing to be aware of. Okay, let's get the bike started. Now, just the thing about the controls. First things first, if the kickstand is down, it will not start. Well, it shouldn't start. It shouldn't start, but if I let go of the clutch, it will let go. But this is the old carbureted bike, so I need to let the engine warm up. It's important to do that. Alright, so if the kickstand is down, you go into first gear. If the kickstand is down, it will shut off. So I'm going to let it do this for a bit. While the engine's warming up, it takes a few seconds. I'm going to get off quickly. You don't need to worry about this. The bikes you'll be riding are mostly fuel injected, so it won't have this. This bike is carbureted, meaning it's there's two valves, and there's a primary valve and then there's preset valve. The preset valve is like a butterfly valve that controls the amount of air goes in. When you turn this on, it shuts. It reduces the amount of oxygen going through the engine, which in turn, but because of the way it's designed of the pistons, it actually pulls in more fuel, so you get more fuel to oxygen mixture, and that's what you need when your bike is cold. But if you have fuel injected, that's done for you automatically. You don't need to play about with this. If I turn it up, revs will climb. If I turn it down, it'll go down. Now just let it warm up. Oh god, it's hot today. Okay, so a few more things about the bike. Obviously, let's go over the controls. Okay, kickstand up again. Just first things I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my mirrors. I need to go somewhere flat. This isn't flat, so I'm going to go here where the ground is flat, and I can look behind me, see what I need to do to the mirrors to get them to be the best position. So I know the camera's on my right side of the helmet, so the angle is not exactly what I'm looking at, but this one is pointing too far back. Put it down. That's about right. Maybe a bit back, a bit more. The key is to get as little of your elbows in the mirrors as you can, and as much view behind you as you can. Primarily this area here. This mirror is for this area here. And where your mirrors cannot catch primarily is right there, right next to you. So we'll get about that in a bit. Move this back down a bit. I should do. Okay, perfect. Now what I tend to do is just touch the engine, see the temperature of my fingers, if it's still kind of cold, so I'll leave it for a bit. Okay, controls. This is the engine kill switch. You don't really need to use this. This is it's like a, if you wanted to, you can bypass everything, switch off the engine by doing this instead of waiting for the keys. And if this is off, if this is pushed up, in other words, it's triggering here, the whole thing is the battery is disconnected from the bike, so no matter what you do, it won't turn on. So if you're finding your bike not starting, make sure the engine kill switch is not engaged. To start the bike, I'll go to that later. This is the right hand brake, this is the clutch. Now this is the throttle, and this is the low beam, high beam. You switch it like this, and this one has hazards, so any issues, or you want to say thank you to people behind you, you push this button in. The key thing you need to know is, in terms of controls, the main one is of like with your fingers, the indicators. So okay, obviously left, we're going left. You get to push in to cancel, they don't automatically cancel. In the test, it's important when you do your turn, you turn off your indicators, otherwise you can fail. Right for going right. And it tells you on this particular model which of the indicators on. This one for now is telling you the right indicator is on, left indicator is on. Push in to cancel. The bike should be warmed enough now. It's warming up. Okay, let's talk about the clutch. This is the clutch. This is what disengages the engine from the rear wheel. You need to do this when you're changing gears, and also at low gears when you're in first gear. You can't really control the power with just the throttle. Okay, you need to control how much the engine engages with the rear wheel on top of the throttle. So when you pull it in, the bike is essentially in neutral. No matter what you do, there's no. If I was in gear, like no matter what I do, you know how fast the engine spins, the bike's not going to move. And when you let go, and then its natural position, that's when the engine is engaged. If it was in gear. Now, the bite point for most bikes is roughly the same. It's about here. Okay, so about just under an inch of pull. So if I to fully disengage all of it, but so if I think I should be warm enough now. Yep. If I was in gear and I do this, okay, so this is fully out, this, like just a tiny bit. You'll get used to the amount of pressure you put through your fingers. You'll know exactly how much pressure you need to get a bike engaged, and then how much, and then once it's engaged, it's literally like this, like millimeters of movement for the feathering of the throttle power. Obviously, you're going to combine that with your throttle. Let's talk about the throttle. For this kind of bike, it's got quite a lot of horsepower, so you don't really need a lot of throttle. This is the free play. This means that you can have this much motion and nothing will happen. Beyond it is when you start engaging. Now you see how sensitive it is. A millimeter, it's barely turning, and the engine's responding. You only really need about at most 1 centimeter of turning. 1 centimeter like this. Like, to really, it's all you need. 1 centimeter is the most you need. I'm probably warm enough now. Yep. Okay, let's move off. But before we move off, in the test, what it will tell you to do is check your left, check your right, and then move off. Okay, so imagine I've done that so I can explain. Clutch is in fully. I'm going to kick down on the lever, no longer in neutral, so it's in first gear. Let it out like this. See about here, the bike starts to move. Okay, so I'm going to give a tiny bit, like literally less than a millimeter of throttle. Let it out, look forward, out more, and we're off. All the lights I've turned off, turning right here, checking behind me, always checking my mirrors to understand situational awareness. I'm going to work, so it's really early and I may not be entirely coherent, but I'll try my best. I need this guy to move. I mean, I could go in front of him, but yeah, I'm gonna move, boy. Alright, so I'm checking this mirror, make sure no one's behind me, because if I were to go forward and take a right, I'm gonna cut off this area, so no one's behind me. It's a car coming. Checking the left, looks good. Let him go. Always check your mirrors left and right. Like, it's really hard for you to understand. I'm looking at the mirrors, but I'm spending in the city, I think every 2 seconds I'm looking at both my mirrors, looking back. All good. And we're gonna get to the red light. So we're gonna take a left up here. It's only a left lane only. Checking left mirror, right mirror, fine. Putting the clutch, front brake, rear brake. Okay, front brake, rear brake is that pedal. Thing about bike control is everything, it needs to be progressive. You can never do this, or this. You don't want to do that. You gotta do everything slow. Okay? You gotta. The key thing is to understand the feedback coming from the bike, and that plays a role in steering as well. So I'm waiting for the lights to go green. I know I'm gonna need to turn left, so I'm keeping an eye on my left mirror, making sure nothing's coming up behind me. And just to get a basic understanding of what the situation is like on that side, the danger side. Okay, just keeping an eye on the mirror. So there's a van coming up, so there's gonna be a white van behind me soon. Looking forward. Right sizing is important this time. Okay, I won't really pay attention to the right side. Okay, going, taking a look at the mirrors, checking back, no one's there. And off we go. So I'm changing the gears. It's really when you change the gears, you pull in the clutch, the disengaged engine, throttle off for the split second, and as soon as your throttle's off, you kick up to the gear you want. Now I'm going to adjust the mirrors a bit. There, it was a bit low. So I use the mirrors, obviously you should use the mirrors all the time because it's what keeps you safe. There's a car coming up behind me, I need to be in the left lane. I'm going to slow down, let him through. Technically I could have just gone to the front, but I'm going to indicate left, look over there, it's safe, drift over, indicator off, and I could actually filter to the front, but I'm not going to bother. Okay, now what I've done in that time, when I came to the stop, is I changed to neutral. Okay, first gear, off we go, checking both mirrors, because I'm not going to deviate from my lane position, so I don't really need to check left and right, but in the test, you'll be forced to do it just to build the habit. So in the test or in training, make sure you check your sides whenever you start or stop. Okay? No idea what's happening back there. And here's a 20 mile an hour, as you can see, so we don't want to go over that. Okay, let's go. So now you can see clutch is fully out. I'm in around second gear. The second gear is less sensitive than the first gear. First gear is always the most on or off sensitivity, whereas second gear you can kind of feather it with your throttle. Okay, so I don't need to touch the clutch. I can just ride it like a scooter. First gear is where you do all your slow moving stuff. That's where you do most of your clutches when you're in crawling speed. And everything else besides that, the bike is essentially a scooter. Okay, think of it like that. You don't need to figure about the clutch, except unless you're changing gears and stuff. But okay, so right now my position is center of the lane. They're gonna stop. I can tell from the GPS there is there's probably a red light up there. Now, whenever I do anything, I make sure I stay in my lane position. That's very important. You don't want to be weaving, even just the feet left or feet right. You don't want to do any of that. You're going to keep your line as predictable for other people as possible. His light's gone off. He's going to move. Check your mirrors left and right. Now, in the real world, I don't need to look left and right like this. I can check my mirrors because I'm going straight. I'm not going to deviate left and right. If I were to deviate left and right by a few feet, I would check that area like this. Okay. Now we got more stoppage here. It's still moving, so it's fine. Now you notice when you slow, this bike weighs 250 kilograms. It's an old bike, so the materials they used is not as space agey. It's just stainless steel, heavy stuff. But when I'm riding above 5 miles per hour, I feel none of that. Okay, so don't let the weight. It's not like a bicycle, okay? The engine basically provides everything for your, the engine does everything for you. You don't need to do anything. The only thing you need to do is spend the minimal amount of energy to keep the bike upright with your feet once it stops. Why are they beeping? What's their problem? Okay, so I'm just going forward, and now my clutch is in. Now, to come to a stop, that is the most smoothest stop. Usually you want the bike to lean to your left, okay, when you come to a stop, or to fall to your left.